Projekt Guru.
Всем привет! С вами Zak Novak на радиостанции Novorossia Rocks. Welcome to Novorossia Rocks radio station. This is Zak Novak, your American in downtown Donetsk. Program is called Projekt Guru, and Guru is here as always. Thank you, Guru, for all the hard work that you do. Andre, my engineer. Let's start off the constant assassination attempts on journalists by the Poroshenko regime. The constant attack on international journalists has been the main ingredient in the war by the Nazi Ukraine forces and its coup leader, Poroshenko. The deliberate attempts to shut down any information coming out of Donbass region, which consists of the proud republics of Donetsk and sister republic Lugansk. The massive ceasefire violations, the war crimes, atrocities committed by the Ukraine Junta with indiscriminate bombing on civilians' areas. Homes destroyed, schools, hospitals targeted, power and water supply areas deliberately targeted, which amounts to genocide. Let us not forget that 10,000 who died and close to 100,000 injured due to the heavy weaponry used on civilians, many children, women, decapitated bodies, mutilated beyond recognition, and this all backed by the Obama administration, the support of the Ukraine Junta, with U.S. trainers taking part in this violent carnage as well. TA group of Russian reporters from RT, Channel 1 and 5th Channel came under shelling open from positions of the Kiev troops, the roads near the town of Yasinovata, north of Donetsk, on Tuesday, Guru. This was the report given in. The checkpoint on the road has been under intense shelling from mortars, air defense guns and small arms fire by the Ukraine Junta. By the time of the reporting, the journalist has managed to escape the area shelled by the Ukrainian military. Also, Andre, thank you, that was trying to break through the road, right? In between Gorlovka and Yasinovata, the Nazi regime of Poroshenko tried to break in between the lines, attack, but they were pushed back by the Novorossia army. They also targeted, like I said, the journalists, but they made it back safely. More troops, more war. U.S. sending toy soldiers to Iraq and Syria. Speaking today before the Senate Armed Service Committee, CENTCOM, Commander General Lloyd Austin talked up the idea of sending additional U.S. ground troops to both Iraq and Syria for the war against ISIS, saying that there was a clear need for additional capability to try to take ISIS major cities of Mosul, Iraq, and Raqqa, Syria. General Austin went on to say that his people have done an analysis on how many more troops were needed, and he made recommendations to the White House, but declined to tell the committee exactly how many more troops this would entail. Exactly how many U.S. troops are already in Iraq and Syria isn't wholly clear either. Last month, the Pentagon claimed 3,700 troops in Iraq, only to admit shortly thereafter that in reality there were well over 4,000 troops there at any given time. In Syria, the number is smaller but has varied in different estimates. The U.S. has tended to add troops in Iraq in small increments, a few hundred at a time, both to avoid any domestic debate about the ground war and to avoid upsetting the Iraqi government, which nominally capped the U.S. presence at 3,870 troops, but which has ignored the U.S. being far above that number for months. In Syria, the lack of any agreement with the Assad government makes throwing more troops into the country easier in practice, albeit dicey from an international legal perspective. U.S. troops in Syria are believed to be centered around the Kurdish YPG's territory in the northeast. More toy soldiers to die. Guru Andre, North Korea, without thinking twice, will inflict nuclear strike on peerless dogs, the U.S. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un said his country may inflict preemptive nuclear strikes on the U.S. Speaking at a meeting with nuclear weapons experts, without thinking twice, North Korea will inflict preventive nuclear strikes on the United States if the U.S. imperialists threaten its sovereignty and right to existence. On Wednesday, Kim Jong-un has met with the country's nuclear weapons experts and discussed the strengthening of the country's nuclear arsenal. North Korea's leader has paid great attention to the research related to the creation of various types of tactical and strategic missiles with nuclear warheads, acquainted himself with the specialization and the mechanism of compact under warheads of the Korean style. Early on Wednesday, Reuters reported that Kim Jong-un said the country has miniaturized nuclear warheads to be mounted on ballistic missiles. The nuclear warheads have been standardized to be fit for ballistic missiles by miniaturizing them. On February 7th, North Korea's rocket carrier brought to Earth orbit Kwangmaesong 4 satellite. The launch was made from the Sohae test site in northwest part of the country. On January 6, North Korea's Central Television reported that Pyongyang had conducted a successful test of thermonuclear bomb. North Korea previously conducted 3 nuclear tests in 2006, 2009, 2013. Following these tests, the United Nations Security Council imposed different kinds of sanctions on Pyongyang. In the past 2 years, North Korea refrained from nuclear tests, limiting itself to ballistic missile launches, as a response to South Korea's and United States large-scale military exercises, which have been nothing but total provocation. Long live DPRK. UN reports show that the Ukraine Junta's bombing of civilian areas impacting daily life. Guru, very important, from the United Nations. Despite a decrease in the number of civilian casualties in the Donbass region east of Ukraine over the past few months, a new UN report shows that the conflict is severely impacting on the daily life of civilians, with a growing sense of despair and isolation affecting those living in the conflict zone, especially in the areas controlled by the armies of the republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. Fighting in the east of Ukraine, the Donbass region, intensified in February due to the constant bombing and indiscriminate attacks by the Ukraine Junta on civilians using multiple types of weaponry, including the targeting of hospitals and schools, water, gas, and power plants. The situation of the residents of the region worsened, according to a series of reports on Ukraine by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. There is a terrible sensation of physical, political, social, and economic isolation and abandonment among the huge number of people, more than 3 million in all, who are struggling to eke out a living in the conflict zone. They are in urgent need of greater protection and support, said the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Rad Al-Hussein, has cited by the report. According to 3 UN agencies, Office of the High Commissioner for Refugees, World Health Organization, and Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, between the 16th of November 2015 and 15 February 2016, 78 conflict-related civilian casualties were recorded in the Donbass region, eastern Ukraine, bringing the estimated casualty figures since the beginning of the conflict to more than 30,000 people, including at least 9,000, that's close to 10,000, 21,000 injured. These figures include civilians as well as Nazi Ukrainian armed forces and the proud armies of the Republic of Donetsk and Lugansk. The report draws attention to serious consequences to conflict for children. According to UN Children Fund UNICEF, fighting in the Donbass region east of Ukraine affected 580,000 minors. Of this number, 200,000 need psychological assistance. War crimes by the Ukraine Junta regime, backed by the Obama administration. Stop your war crimes. Our sister republic, Lugansk, attacked by the Ukraine Junta forces with anti-aircraft weaponry. Nazi forces of the Poroshenko junta regime once again have unleashed a barrage of weapons fire on our sister republic, Lugansk, striking at the brave army positions of the Lugansk Republic's lines. Multiple weaponry used as the Nazi forces of Ukraine tried to inflict heavy casualties. Nazi Kiev's military opened fire on army positions in the Lugansk People's Republic. That's from the Lugansk Information Center, said on Tuesday, referring to the Republic's Defense Authority. Opened fire from infantry fighting vehicles, anti-aircraft weapons, and automatic grenade launchers, the Lugansk army said. No casualties. Thank goodness there were no casualties. The Nazi Ukrainian military and the armies of the republics in Donbass region, Ukraine's southeast, have agreed several times the ceasefire regime in the conflict zone, but OSCE monitors are still fixing fire exchanges. At the meeting of the contact group on January 13, the side supported the initiative of Russia's envoy Boris Gryzilov on ensuring complete ceasefire on the territory of Donbass. This was the 7th attempt to observe fully the ceasefire regime in Donbass, Ukraine's war-torn southeast, the Donbass region. Guru, let's go to Turkey. Zaman, Turkey's largest newspaper, will continue to publish in exile. The Friday takeover of the Zaman, Turkey's largest newspaper, by the Turkish government junta appears to have been far from a total takeover. For a while, the group's Turkish office is now pumping out pro-government fluff pieces. The actual private Zaman is going to continue to publish itself, unaffected by the Turkish offices being seized by the police. The Zaman Almanya, the paper's Germany office, says it's still operating privately and will continue with the publication of the daily paper. They already have 14,000 subscribers within Germany, home to the largest Turkish expatriate community. The future of the English language Zaman, today's Zaman, remains unclear, as the site was last updated Saturday with harsh criticism of the government takeover of their corporation's main office. The site has yet to be downed. However, despite talk that government officials intended to purge the archives of Zaman's website of all pre-takeover content, Istanbul courts approved the takeover of Zaman last week amid government allegations of terror ties because of the media's company's affiliation with Fethullah Gulen, a former Erdogan ally who was exiled for pushing corruption allegations against the government, which Erdogan presented as an attempted coup. So here you have, Guru, a newspaper being closed down by Erdogan Junta, and nothing from the United States, nothing from Obama. Disgusting. OSHA condemns Ukraine Junta decision to suspend social payments for displaced civilians. The United Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OSHA, has expressed concern over Ukrainian junta government's decision to suspend social payments for 150,000 internally displaced persons, IPDs, from Donbass. A new source of concern in February was the government's announcement to suspend social payments for a significant number of IDPs. On 21st February, Prime Minister Yatsenyuk informed the suspension of social payments to 150,000 due to anecdotal occurrences of fraud, OSHA said in its humanitarian bulletin. The alarming news about suspension of social payments to IDPs came only days after the parliamentary hearings of the Verkhovna Rada on 17 February dedicated to the human rights situation of the internally displaced people and citizens of Ukraine, the report added. Despite the adoption of the law of Ukraine on amendments to certain laws of Ukraine to strengthen the guarantees of the rights and freedoms of internally displaced persons in December, the government and ministers were heavily criticized for neglecting the needs and rights of IDPs, for the absence of strategies and budget allocations, fostering separation of NGCs, non-governmental control areas, and not treating equally Ukraine citizens living there, and excessive bureaucratic impediments. Among the speakers, the UN was represented by the resident coordinator Neil Walker and the head of the Humane Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine, Fiona Fraser. During the presentation, made a particular focus on the human rights violations of people residing in the NJCs, the absence of rule of law there, the situation in Crimea, as well as the residual obligations of the Ukrainian government towards all its citizens, regardless their place of residence. Kiev's refusal to make social payments triggered a strong reaction from the Donetsk and Lugansk republics. DPR People's Council Speaker Denis Pushilin said that the official refusal of Ukrainian junta authorities to make social payments to IDPs from Donbass demonstrates that these people are no longer considered Ukrainian citizens. OSHA said in its report that a group of 16 Ukrainian civil society organizations involved in humanitarian aid issued an appeal to the Ukrainian government, asking the Ministry of Social Policy to immediately stop suspending IDP certificates on the basis of data provided by the SSU and the SPGs, as such practice is clearly a violation of the Ukrainian law. In February, the situation further deteriorated when the government temporarily closed the Marinka and Zaitseva checkpoints in Donetsk Oblast for security reasons. This resulted in a backlog of vehicles and pedestrians attempting to cross the remaining two checkpoints, with some forced to wait as long as 36 hours on the road in unbearable conditions. OSHA called on Ukrainian authorities to limit closure of checkpoints to prevent hardship for civilians, reminding that 4 civilians were killed 10th of February when their minivan drove over a landmine as they sought to avoid the long queue or vehicles near Marinka checkpoint. Thank you so much, OSHA, for that report. Again, everybody, as I stress, be safe, be on alert. See you soon. See you actually on Friday. Bye-bye, folks.